Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this video is to show you how to make a complex shape out of a design that already exists. Last time we worked with shapes, we used the simple shapes tools and pen tool in Illustrator. This time we're going to be starting in Adobe Photoshop. So I am going to create a new document. I'm going to make the document size be in inches and size it for the design that I want to make. So for this, I'm just going to make a simple little keychain. So I'm going to make a 3-inch by 3-inch workspace to begin with. I'm going to go to the File menu and I'm going to go down to Place Embedded and find the image that I want to work with. So I'm going to find my design. Here it is, Place. And then I'm just going to resize my design so it fills my workspace as much as possible. And I'm going to zoom out just so I can get this to fit again pretty much completely in the workspace of my Photoshop document. Let's reposition it a bit, and then up at the top I'm going to hit this check mark. Let's zoom back in by going View and Fit on Screen. So here is my design. This is what I'm going to be working with, and I'm not actually going to be working with this entire design. So the first thing I'm going to do after I place my image is I'm going to rasterize it, and then I'm going to duplicate it so that I have something to work on, and if I do anything critically incorrect, I can go back to the starting point. So I'm going to hide that bottom layer by clicking on the visibility icon, this little eyeball image beside it, and choose the top layer, and that's the one I'm going to edit. So what I want to do to begin with is start removing the background area around my design so that all I'm left with for what I'm working with is just this plane. I'm just using the magic wand tool, and if this isn't working well for you, you can always take your tolerance levels up. And then what I could do here is just go back, start selecting more, hold the shift key, and just work within all of this design, getting as much of this selected as possible. So that way when I do start deleting this out, I'm left with pretty much just what I want. So I'm just still holding that shift key, adding to my selection so that I find that all I have left is the plane selected. And I can see that I have my dash lines going around the plane and around the outside edge, which means everything but the plane is selected. I'm going to hit delete, Control and D to deselect, and here's my plane. So now the next part of this is I want to start turning this into a dual tone image. So what I'm going to do is make the detail of the plane here be black. So I'm going to select that with my magic wand tool, go to my edit menu, choose fill, and I'm going to fill this in as black. And then I'm going to take my gray areas of my design around the plane wings, and I'm going to fill those in as white. I could even take the area around the design and fill it in as white, but it's not really necessary right now. And then I have a choice on the cockpit windshield. I can take the white area and I can fill that in as black, and then fill the area around the cockpit that's gray as white. And that would be my results right there. What I could also do then is further highlight this black section in here, or if I don't like that, my reverse is also true. I could keep the white section of the windshield white, take the gray section, choose fill, make that be black, and that would be what my plane would look like. I think I'm going to go back to the original, but what I'm going to do is just a little extra step. So what I'm going to do, instead of filling this in here, I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to fill that in as black. And then just to make this stand out a little bit more, what I'm going to do now is go to my layer menu, go down to style and choose stroke. And then I'm going to choose white as my color for my stroke line. And I'm going to make my stroke about 3 pixels just to help thicken it up. And I'm going to put it on the outside, see how that works. No, I think I'll keep it on the inside. And then back on my original layer of the plane, I'll select the gray area and I'm going to fill that area as white to match that stroke line. And that just helps to define the edge a bit there. So yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for right there. Now this isn't going to work perfect, so one thing I am going to have to do is use my paintbrush tool, and I need to connect this windshield section somewhere. So I'm just going to come down to the bottom here, and I'm just going to fill this area. Oh, actually, sorry, I made one mistake. I need a new layer again. And on this new layer, I'm going to cover up that stroke layer and just fill this in here. Might even actually fill this in just a little further over. I'm going to click at one point, hold my shift key, click again. It's just going to make a nice straight line here, just to fill that in a little bit better than it was from the tracing. And the reason I've done that is that the windshield part here that's filled in black is now connected to the plane. And when I cut this out, I'm going to be cutting this white area away so it's open. And if I didn't have this connected, this part would just fall through and I would lose that detail. So by having it connected here, it keeps it connected. And if I really wanted to further that design, I could take this paintbrush down even thinner, and I could do something like trace this over across, fill this over here, and then that just again adds to that detail. I don't really personally like that, so I'm going to take it out of there and just leave it like this. So now I'm going to save my image as. So for me, I have a older version of Photoshop, so I need to use the export as feature. Some of you maybe use the save feature. If you have a newer version of Photoshop down here in the format, you'll be able to save this as a JPEG, and that would be what you would want to use to export this image as. For me, I have to go down to export and choose export as, and I can select JPEG. Quality, I'm going to select great, so it's the highest quality possible. On the Save As feature, after you've saved it, it'll ask you for the quality settings. You just always make it the highest setting possible. And then we're going to export this image. We're going to give this a name. So I'm going to call this Complex Shape 1. I'm going to choose Save. And then I'm just going to flip over to Illustrator here. And in Illustrator, I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to make this be the same size as my original design file, so 3 inches by 3 inches for my little keychain. And I'm going to import my picture by going File, Place, look for my complex shape, place my complex shape into the top left corner, and then I'm just going to scale this down by selecting my proportionate chain link, and then I'll set my width to 3 inches, and now my plane's been shrunken down to match. Okay, so right now this is just a picture, an image, and this means nothing for laser cutting, which is what I'm looking to do. I want to cut this plane out of a design piece. So in order to do this, I am going to go to my window menu and I am going to choose the image trace feature. And with this menu opened up, I'm going to click on my picture, which activates my image trace, and here are my settings. Under preset, I'm going to use the black and white logo because I made a black and white image. Under my view, instead of tracing result, I want tracing result with outlines, which is going to bring up these blue lines showing me how it's tracing my design, and those are going to become important in a moment here. And then under the advanced tab, I'm going to click on this little arrow to bring up my advanced options. The very first one I want to select is ignore white. So that's going to ignore all the white areas inside the plane, but it's also going to ignore all the white around the plane. And then playing with the paths, the corners, and the noise will help you to clean up the lines as need be. So if I take my noise down, that's not really done a lot, but if I take my corners up and I take my paths up, I might find that I get more detail or even too much detail. It's becoming a little choppy. I'm going to take my paths down a bit. That's cleaned up my lines, smoothed them out, made them a little bit cleaner. I can take my paths down to really low, and you can see it really breaks down the image now. I'm going to keep this somewhere a little bit higher, probably in the 90-ish% area. If I take my corners down, you can see it's just refining it a little bit here and there to get this to a point where you're happy. And again, you don't have to use the cursor. I can specifically type in numbers to play around with my design. And when you're happy with what you're going to get for your results on the right hand side here, you're just going to click expand, and that's going to trace out your design. And now this is an object that has been vectorized, which is what we require for laser cutting. So I said that everything in here that's going to be black is what I want to cut out, and that's because those are all the connected shapes. When I actually take this to the laser, what I want to do is actually remove the fill and play with the stroke or the line settings. But first, I said this was going to be a keychain, so I need a way to attach this to my keys. So I'm going to use my basic shapes, get an ellipse here, click on my screen. I don't need a very large ring, so I'm going to make something about 1/4 of an inch in size. And I'm going to make another one here. I'm going to make this one just a little bit smaller, so about 1/8 of an inch, or 0.125. Oop, typed wrong. Make that so it's easy, and I had to turn off my proportionate scaling there so I could change the height to make it so that I had the shape matching. I'm going to take my 2 circles, I'm going to align them horizontally and vertically, and then using my pathfinder tool, which we used the last time we were looking at shapes, I'm going to minus the front area, and then I can position this ring that I've made somewhere on my screen. So I could put it up at the top of the plane, I could put it down at the nose of the plane, I could attach it to one of the wings. I think that's probably where I'm actually going to go, is somewhere on one of the wings. And all I'm looking to do here is get this so it lines up so that the plane wing doesn't come into the center of my ring shape, and that I don't have my outside edge of my ring shape come into the opening of the wing. So that looks great right there. Select both my objects and use my Unite option in Pathfinder, and that's now selected together, joined to become a new shape. And then I can prepare this for laser cutting. So I would turn my fill off to no fill. I would set my stroke to 0.25 of a point, and I would choose a color other than black or white. So I'm going to choose red. And there's my design ready to go to the laser. And then again, every piece that's not connected together would fall out and be left as nothing. Every piece that's connected together, the ring, the plane, is all going to be one part and become my keychain. All right, so that is making a complex image or design into something that can be a shape for cutting in the laser engraver. When you're doing this, please consider what it is you're making. I used a keychain as an example. Feel free to use something else like a coaster that could be cut out as a shape, as opposed to an object that's engraved. This is the physical form, so this piece would be the material, the acrylic or the wood. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is your turn to take an attempt at this pitter patter.